Hey, what's up, tribe? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the TFC Audio Project Down Under. This week I'm joined by Misty Dullahide, who's an avid barefooter and a biodynamic leader at Zeil Wilderness Park in Central Australia, where she actually operates a food forest in the desert. Throughout the episode, we delve into her barefoot journey and how it has made her think differently about her physical and mental health. We talk through how she found herself in a desert farm and the lessons she's learnt along the way, the amazing power of connecting with nature on a deeper level, and the parallels between caring for a garden and caring for our own health. This week's episode is brought to you by TFC Beginner Beams. We've been loving the feedback and reviews that we've been getting on our current beam models, but one thing we have been hearing pretty often is that they're a lot more challenging than they look and can be pretty tough on the feet when people first get onto them. That's obviously great for building strength and resilience in your feet, but it can also be a bit of a barrier for people who have more significant foot or balance issues. That's why we've rolled out the TFC Beginner Beam. It's our most affordable and accessible model yet. The BB is designed with a much wider and flatter surface, as well as built-in cradles for extra stability, making it the perfect tool for anyone, young or old, looking to start training their balance. Each beam, of course, comes with our online beam training system to guide you along your journey, and we'll also, of course, be donating $5 from every sale to plant one tree here in Australia to help reforest our country through our partnership with Reforest Now. To check them out, you can head to our website, tfc-shopaus.com. Okay, so Misty, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
No worries, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So we actually connected. It's a bit of a funny story, actually, but we connected because we were having major issues getting a beam sent out to you at Mount Zeil in the middle of nowhere or the middle of Australia.
I call it somewhere.
Okay, somewhere. That's a good way to put it. And yeah, we were just having major delays and we weren't getting any response back from our couriers. And so I had to give you a call and break the news and try and figure something else out. And so we ended up sending you another package, and now we've just found out that you have got the original package.
I got two beams.
Yeah. So it's a win-win. But anyway, when I did call you, we had a great chat on the phone, all about, your barefoot journey and what you're up to at Mount Zeil, like why you're actually there and what you're doing there. And I found it really inspiring myself. And so I wanted to hear more about it and obviously share it out with our community as well. So yeah, I thought maybe we could just start at the start with your barefoot journey and how you got into all of this and what sort of brought you to getting a beam from us, and then we can delve into everything else along the way.
Yeah, cool. That sounds good. I feel like for me, my barefoot journey. Barefoot journey starts at the start, right? We all started out barefoot, so
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's like everyone has one.
Yeah.
But I actually broke both my ankles when I was younger. Or didn't completely break the ankle. I had an injury when I was in grade 8. Oh, I think that was back 2008, and then I had an injury in 2009, and It was really interesting. The first injury was more of a hairline fracture from my ankle up my shin. I'd fallen off of a seesaw swing at a park, came down and landed all my weight pretty much on there, and that caused that injury. And then a year later, I was roller skating and last round around the rink, and thought this be it, and then fell over and snapped. I guess where your joint of your ankle goes into the joints of your shin bones, my growth plate snapped down the middle. Right. It was about a 6 mil crack, and so I had to actually go in for an operation for that. And it's funny because I remember being at the doctor's, and my mum said, I think she drinks a lot of milk. It should be fine, Like I don't get why she's breaking all her ankles, But I think I was going through that point in my life of growth spurt. I was going through a massive growth spurt, and so I guess my ankle just became, a fragile thing. But also, we as kids ran around with no shoes on, so I thought I would have had pretty tough feet, being younger. And then and I didn't really take into account too much of what those injuries could have had effect, or when you think when you're older, you don't think what happens to you when you're younger, what it's going to do later in life, the trauma that is inflicted on our bodies. And
For sure.
yeah, and I remember with the right ankle, with the growth plate, I had to have the operation, and then I was in a cast for like 6 weeks, and then in a moon boot for 6 weeks, and then when that came off, actually learning to put weight on my leg again. I didn't do physiotherapy or nothing, I came from I guess a pretty low economic area, and we didn't really look into think of that stuff. You don't think of physio. You just go back out. You'll be right.
You just get out of the boot and get out. Yeah, get back out there.
Yeah. So I never really looked at healing that part of my body until later in life. Until like I think it was there's that documentary where they talk about Vivo barefoots and. What's the doco? It's on YouTube. And it's for like an hour.
Shoespiracy?
Yeah, Shoespiracy.
Oh, an hour?
Shoespiracy. Yeah. And that I was just like blown away because, sometimes I'm a big believer. Like when you hear some things, you just know they're right. like, and I feel like we try to we probably try to resist the information because we've got a closet filled with like 20 shoes we spent some big money on, but I never had that. I was always looking for the cheaper option, and the cheaper option was actually wearing no shoes. So that kind of inspired me, and then I found the Foot Collective, the American team.
Oh actually they're Canadian.
Oh, Canadian. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be upset if you heard me call them American.
Oh, I'm sorry, technical difficulties.
No offense to all the Americans out there.
But the the green bars, I was like, this is so cool, and it was there, the information was there, but I kind of let it lay dormant for a while. I was still discovering, I guess, going through my own healing journey of just getting fit and healthy. I spent a good couple of years there being a bit of a party animal and, doing crazy things to my body. And actually, when I was 18, it was a pretty deep conversation, but I was a kid out of home and didn't have really any aspirations and stuff. And I actually attempted suicide by jumping in front of a car. And I was very, very blessed that I walked away with just a knee that was split open, no bones broken or anything like that. But
wow.
But the impact of the car hitting me, I've now picked up on later in life, the trauma that's done to that part of my body. And so it's ignited, this new love for, okay, how can I actually look at healing myself and where can I get to the bare necessities of it, Because I got into the gym, and the gym was amazing, I looked sexy as hell, and I looked good. I got muscly, I got fit, but I could still feel the aches and the pains, and I didn't realize all those things that I did to myself as a younger person. I'm still young, but as I did, what that actually, did to me. So now I'm keen to get into it, and that's when I found you and booked my beam. That came 3 months late, but that's all right. But now I'm here on a podcast with you. Which is
exactly.
Which is amazing.
It is, and interesting how the universe works, I suppose. With if the beam hadn't come late, then we wouldn't have had a connection, and then we wouldn't be sitting here chatting. So
it's so incredible. And honestly, James, I think what you did that day by just calling up, like that customer service is something like I pride myself in. I've worked hospitality my whole life, so to have like someone actually call and be like, let alone the person behind the whole thing, and be like, hey, like I understand that compassion. Really, now I'm like, I have to stick to this. Like, he gave me his heart. I got to give myself my heart, So, which was amazing because now I have and I've already seen improvements with myself on the beam. I finally hit. I got a minute and 11 seconds yesterday on just balancing on the 1 foot, which was so cool. But, that's only within the week because I just got back from holidays. But you can see improvement.
Yeah, sweet. Oh yeah, and it is amazing. I mean, there's so much in that story that we can delve into. But it is just on that point, it is amazing how quickly the body responds to the challenge of, especially of the beam, because it's not really like you're working out your muscles. Like you said, it's not like going to the gym. Like, yes, your body does sort of feel like it gets some work, and your glutes usually fire up and your feet fire up, and it feels a bit like work, but really it's your nervous system is training in order to figure out how to stabilize on this weird bit of timber.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can go from like barely being able to stand on it at all to going over a minute for a single leg stance, and then going, eyes closed and doing lots of cool different tricks on the beam. And it's this sort of this play-based way of your body like self-organizing itself, or organizing itself in order to be more stable and more coordinated. And I think we were talking briefly before about I guess the like the effects of trauma, like the ongoing long-term effects of trauma, whether that's physical or mental trauma. But if we just talk about physical trauma for now, there's actually a whole book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it goes quite deep. But obviously, if you have an injury of some kind, then that will have some kind of mental and physical effect going down the line, unless you do something to address it, pretty much. And I think a lot of people do have injuries, and myself included. Like, even when I was studying physio, or knew I wanted to study physio, I had an ankle injury and I didn't end up rehabbing it properly, because quite frankly, the stuff that the physio gave me to do was super boring. And I was a kid, and I was like, oh, this is like, you just don't get motivated to do that stuff. Whereas with things like the beam, then you don't have to have a coach telling you what to do, really. A little bit of guidance is helpful, but as long as you get on the beam and try and stay on the beam and try a few different challenges, then your body sort of, it tells you what areas need more work, and it tells you, and it starts to self-organize without you having to figure it out yourself, pretty much.
Yeah,
Without you having to figure it out consciously.
Yeah. Well, even yesterday, I've mucked around with the hacky sack, but I haven't done any of the kicking stuff that I've seen.
Oh yeah.
and then I started doing
tough.
it, but I started just on the knee, and I was like, oh, this is fun. It was like something just my child self came out. It was just like, I've been only just listening to the podcast recently. And in those beginning podcasts where you really emphasize on play, wow, it's like I have a friend visiting at the moment, and she's also just added to that playfulness in my life, and I'm like, wow, it's so fun. Like, you forget how serious you are, and even when I think I'm probably one of the least serious people, I'm like, oh no, I actually just that movement, and we just went for a walk up the gorge at Mount Zeil Wilderness Park, where I live. 200 k's west of Alice Springs, by the way. And so there's this beautiful gorge up there, and these boulders are like, oh, lost my headphones. These boulders are like monstrosities, like they're gigantic, and you're just like, oh. And then we were just climbing and just, running across these like massive, like, and there's no one else in this nature park, like in the middle of Australian desert. It's just amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
And yeah, that's the thing. It's these very simple pleasures, like going for a hike up a big mountain. Like, so that's something I did the last weekend, or the weekend before last. Was out at Bush One, out at my uncle and auntie's land that we're building out of. We just went for a huge explore up the mountain, and because it's his land and there's no one else there, and we found this massive rock face, and like this big what would you call it, like this big valley that was all rock. And so we're just exploring this whole place, and it's not like a workout, but it's so much more for your body and mind and spirit, to just get out there in those wild places. And I find, for me, like balancing and playing with a hacky sack is a similar thing, where you get out of your head. Yep. You're in, you're just in the present moment doing what you're doing, and it's just really fun. And you just know deep down how good it is for you, and that's why your brain is giving you those chemicals of like, yes, keep doing this.
Definitely. When we were coming down the mountain, my friend, she even stated, she's like, okay, let's try to challenge ourselves and not use our arms. And then, because she's an ex-cheerleader, so she's got that balancing technique already in. And so she was like telling me, like, hold your core and do these things. And she's like, checking in on me, like, how you going? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to lie, the legs
Yeah.
are definitely feeling it a lot more, And when you're climbing down these real steep bits and you just want to use your hands to squattle down. But it's like, well, actually your body is capable of holding you, like I go up this gorge
Yeah.
walk by myself and take the shoes off. I wear my bare foots, but I usually take the shoes off and go for a bit just to train my legs up on on being barefoot on this harder surface, because we've got all sandy country around here. And so it just, by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I put my shoes back on there. Like, it's such a good little workout. But oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the feet, they definitely need a bit of getting used to, especially with texture. Like if there's like sharp rocks or hot things and things like that, then it really they need some time to get used to it.
Well, being
And
out here, it's
sorry,
very
go on.
tough. Oh no, I was just gonna say the desert country is, we got like I was barefoot before I came here, and then I've had to actually relearn barefoot on a whole different. Like I've come to Mars. Like I'm just gonna paint that picture for you. It's red dirt everywhere.
Wow.
Crickets and everything. But they're a lot tougher than 10
True.
months ago.
Yeah. Does it get really hot as well on the sand, I imagine? Is
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
yeah, like super hot sand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like sometimes you go to the beach and you like pretty much burn your feet on
Yeah.
the sand if you go barefoot.
I think I had it yesterday. I had to walk from like our kitchen area to like my bedroom, and I was like, oh, she's a bit hot today. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's because I wear my bare foots when I work, all the time. I was wearing steel caps when I got here, and if my boss listens to this, I'll probably get in trouble because I'm supposed to wear steel caps, PPE. But if I'm on machinery, I'll chuck them on. But if otherwise, if I'm in the garden, I've got my bare foots on, or I've got no shoes on.
Is that the are they the trackers that you use, Vivo Barefoot trackers, or
yeah, I think they're the trackers. Yeah, they've got a
like
bit
the
of that
boot,
heel
the more the boot
support.
style one?
No, they're not the actual like the big trail climbing ones. So it's like big leather chunky ones. Even though they're not chunky, but they're chunky still for me.
But chunky for barefoot shoes.
Yeah, but I've got just the I think they're the trail. Trail ones, yeah. Good ankle, like good bit of ankle support, but still like very loose, and I love them. My first pair of Vivos, I loved them straight away, and then I didn't take them off, and then I went to wear my other shoes, and my other shoes had to go. Like my feet had changed so much. Like so good.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah. Once you get used to barefoot shoes or just being barefoot more, you try to squeeze your feet into something else, and you're like, oh no thanks.
Yeah, not worth it.
you just your feet just like, nah, I'm not tolerating this anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
So I was gonna ask. So you had the ankle injuries, and obviously then you said that you watched the Shoespiracy documentary, and so had you had like ongoing pain or stiffness in the ankles that got better by going barefoot as well, or?
Yeah, so like there would be times where I'd go to stand, or like I work in kitchens, you move around fast a lot and you're on your feet a lot during the day, that I'd go to stand in certain areas or move a certain way, and it'd be a stabbing pain. And I'm so glad you're asking this, because it's something that I haven't had for a very long time.
Wow.
So it'd be like a stabbing pain, and I always thought it's because you got a screw in your ankle, and but no, I just think it was from, I used to wear Vans shoes all the time, and they're so tight on my feet, and they were like my go-to shoes, like always, I went through
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
I went through a big Vans phase.
I think everyone
that was
did.
just my go-to. Yeah, true. It was that era.
Yeah, no judgment, right? But it was I think that was it. And they, like, in an essence, they were kind of like, I don't want to promote them or anything like that, but I never really got into like the Nikes or the Adidas, or they were so tight. And my feet have always been pretty wide anyway, because I've been barefoot, like I've been a barefoot kid. So they never really got comfy. And I remember going to I don't know if I can name drop anywhere, but one of those places where they test your feet, and
Yep.
by the name of athletes or something for testing feet for athletes. I don't know. but
Yeah.
but I did that, and they were like, you've got they watched my ankles roll in, so they got me some high arch support ones, and I was like, okay, and then that was when I started really my training journey with like gym and getting fit and more so getting skinny and muscly,
Yeah.
not fit, not healthy,
Not fit,
just
just
feeding
yeah,
the ego,
I get you.
and
Yeah.
and they were comfy as, and they cost me $250, so they should have been comfy as, but I remember doing lunges and squats and running, and the arch would just still hurt so much. Like, I remember doing training sessions where I'd have to take my shoes off after doing like 20 lunges or whatever, and then I'd be like in pain. Where I don't get that now. Like, it's such a big shift. There's still improvements in my feet that I need to make, and I'm on my way to making. But yeah, that sharp stabbing pain that I used to get on just putting my weight on my foot in a way that maybe didn't like, or it wasn't strong enough to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see
Yeah.
massive improvements with that. Yeah.
Epic. Yeah, well that is what tends to happen because when the foot is squished or it's supported too much, then it just doesn't function the way it should. Like the big toe isn't allowed to move the way it should, which means your plantar fascia can't activate the way it should. And there's all these mechanisms in the foot that really rely on it being allowed to function naturally, like to have the wide toe splay and to have enough strength and mobility in the plantar muscles. And it is, I think, people like you and me, like I was really barefoot a lot growing up as well. And those of us who were encouraged to go barefoot and did spend a lot of time barefoot, I think have a bit of a head start because we didn't mess our feet up too badly to begin with. Obviously, if you have ankle injuries and surgeries and stuff, then that affects things as well. But I think it's quite scary how many people are currently just messing up their feet without realizing it, or they think they're doing the right thing because someone at the athlete's foot told them that they need arch support, and so okay, yeah, sweet, I spent 250 and I'm doing the right thing. And then, like you said, there is an element of truth. Like when you hear, oh, your feet don't need all this support, it's like, ooh, that's probably true. Like that just makes sense. It just really vibes. But a lot of people will resist that because it's like, well, I've just paid $250 for this really supportive footwear. Surely that must be correct. Or my podiatrist told me that I need these orthotics, so surely they must be correct. But I think deep down, or at least from a lot of people, deep down, there's that sort of truth resonating that they're like, that's probably true. It wouldn't make sense that our feet need all of this technology and support.
Yeah, and definitely, and it's such an interesting thing. Hey, and I've come across people now, and it's the first thing I look at. I'm not gonna lie, just check out people's feet, because that's like a good indicator to a lot of things. Like it really is, and I just wanna like shake people sometimes and be like, come on, like I remember being in school, primary school. I had these two teachers, and they always wore heels, like always wore heels. And I was just like, I just don't think they like. I think that if they took their foot out of the heel, it's also just shaped like the heel. Like it's not. They've got to commit now, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people like they're simultaneously deforming their feet by putting them into narrow things, and then they go, oh, my feet are so ugly, I don't want anyone to see them, so I have to wear shoes at all times. And so it's kind of this self-fulfilling, like this negative cycle where it's like the more you want to hide your feet, the less love and attention that you can give them, and the less likely you are to get to go barefoot with them.
Well, I've got.
So yeah, it's a shame, but
well, I've got next to the toe next to my big toe is always been like it's got like, I guess, one of the main knuckles is a lot more cramped than the rest of my knuckles, and I've always thought that's from
Yeah.
squishing my feet together, you know, and I've seen it when I sit down that it struggles to extend like the rest of them. So I'm really working on that. But it's one of the biggest things for me that has improved since going barefoot and allowing it to be flat out, and especially doing climbing and stuff like that, where it gives it the opportunity to be used instead of squished in this car, you know, for it to sit back and do nothing and just get messed up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
And something that we're pretty big on as well at TFC is, like, obviously we care about the physical side of things with people going barefoot and having better foot function and better movement health in general. But we also see the barefoot philosophy, I suppose, or the barefoot concept as a really good conduit to connecting more with nature. And I think that's a pretty good segue into some of the things that you're doing at the moment at Mount Zeil.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to hear about that kind of thing. Like, did you find that when you started going barefoot more, you started feeling that deeper connection with nature and that, I'm just interested to hear about that journey.
Yeah. So I kind of so I did the gym journey, you know, and then the other things in my life that I tried to remove myself from weren't ridding themselves. And so I then the whole COVID thing happened, and I kind of packed up. I didn't even pack up. I got in my car and I hit the road pretty much. I got out of the situations I was in, and I was a bit of a party animal, drug and alcohol abuse and stuff like that, and I just wanted to get healthy. I couldn't get healthy, you know, and so 8 weeks being in my house, although Queensland never really had a lockdown because that's where I'm originally from, but in the beginning, right? So this was March last year. I kind of hit the road because 8 weeks in my house was scarier for me personally, and what I was doing to myself, even though I was lifting weights, you know, like that was scarier for me than to go. So I got in my car and left and started my journey. And within, on the pretense that if I leave, cold turkey on everything, like no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes.
Yeah,
and
wow.
And people ask me still, how did you manage that? I said, well, a week into my little drive, you know, I ended up at a permaculture property in Noosa Hinterlands up in Kinkin, and I just went, wow, I've died and gone to heaven, like, because it was Garden of Eden, banana trees, mulberry trees, peach trees, you know, the veggie gardens, like everything living in symbiosis with each other, and like you didn't want to wear shoes, you know, and that connection straight away brought me not only into like the nature, but also into, you know, what food I was eating, where I was sourcing my food from. Like I'd never eaten like fresh lettuce out of the ground, you know, or I hadn't picked mulberries off a tree since I was little, climbing around with no shoes on my feet, you know, and so many things were reminiscent for me and new and inspiring and also healing for the journey that I just started. I wanted to know, how the hell do you grow this Garden of Eden, you know? And so I completed my permaculture course up at Noosa Forest Retreat. Met some amazing people and more like-minded souls, and, you know, yoga and meditation and all these things, the holistic lifestyle, the alternative way of living, which I don't think should be alternate anymore. It should be the way. It is the way. And you're lying to yourself if you don't believe that.
It's weird that is alternative. Hey, it's like, how did we get to this stage as humanity that is strange for people to grow their own food and to do meditation, and, you know, it's like, you got to be weird to be healthy these days.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm weird as hell. And I love it, you know. I like, the more I dive into this more natural way of living, you know, the more I feel like myself, and sometimes it feels lonely, you know, but also I am in the middle of the desert with a population of 7 people. So fast forward my journey of all this, you know, connecting with like-minded people and whatnot. I continued up the east, the north coast of Queensland, and met some cool farmers and met a biodynamic farmer by the name of Ken Mason, who I was heading out to the desert. That was my next trip after, doing the coastal in North Queensland. I'd never lived in Brisbane my whole life, and never got out to North Queensland, which everyone should go and check out, like amazing. And so, yeah, he told me about a guy growing food in the desert, like a garden in the desert. So, look, I was like, look, that sounds cool. I'll take the connection, And so a week into heading out, I was at Cairns. I called the owner of the property I'm at now. His name's Christopher Connellan, and he's a part of Mount Zeil Wilderness Park. I didn't know that it was Mount Zeil Wilderness Park until my 5-day trip to Alice Springs. Got to Alice Springs, met him. His daughter brought me out here, so I'm expecting like someone's backyard garden I'm gonna help in, or a community garden,
Yeah.
And he's like, look, mind you, this is December last year. He's like, you really should probably wait till March, like. And I said, no, I love a challenge.
As in because of the heat?
Yeah, because of the heat, And that's what Ken Mason had said to me. He said, look, I know this gig and it's tough, and he needs tough people. And I'm like, oh, that's me. My whole life has prepared me for this tough moment, Like, if the rest wasn't tough, I'll go garden in the desert. Yeah, so I got out here, and it was start of December, and everyone was cautious of me coming out, because suburb girl from Brisbane coming to the desert, but I fell in love straight away. The fact that I don't see a house the whole way driving out here. It's, like I said, 200 k's west of Alice Springs. And then they were nervous about me seeing the garden because it was coming into the dry periods, and we hadn't had the rains that we got yet. And they were so nervous of me seeing this garden coming from, tropical Queensland, just being up there with all this tropical fruit. So they take me to this garden. It's about an acre or 1 hectare. And it's got about 33 trees, or fruit trees, different varieties in it, and veggies.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. So, and it was a bit dry when I got there, but I walk in and I see a mango on a tree, and I'm like, no way, man, like what? So I was just blown away, and with what I'd learnt with growing food and becoming, I guess, a part of the ecosystem that is nature. I fell in love with the desert straight away, and I think I fell in love with the extremes of the desert, because on the coast I think we have it a lot easier, it's comfortable and it's what we've known, and we all live by water, but out here it's not that, and it challenges you constantly, and I love being challenged. I love pushing myself mentally, emotionally, and physically to better myself, to see the rawness of who I am. The desert, you can't hide from anything out here, It's
true.
Yeah, it's incredible. Let alone trying to grow fruit and veg.
Yeah. I'm super impressed with that. And so is that all through biodynamic and permaculture principles? Basically, is how you've been able to get that going.
So so these guys got it going. So they've been here for about 5 years now. Chris was actually the owner of the cattle station of this property. Just over 600,000 acres. They sold it about 5 years ago, and subleased about 5,000 acres left at the base of Mount Zeil. Mount Zeil is the tallest mountain in the territory. It's also one of the hardest to climb. It has no track, so it's complete wilderness.
Right.
You're a guest out here. I think that's why I like it. You got to work with nature, or she'll spit you out. And and so on the pretense, I guess, that he wanted to create. He grew up in this land, in this country with the locals and with the land, and he has a connection that I think he wants people to witness and see and experience, because we forget about that connection. And a place like the desert really reminds you of it, because it's so raw. And I guess the biodynamic side, well, Christopher has always been I'll probably get in trouble for calling him Christopher on this podcast, but Chris, he's always been an alternate thinker with soil regeneration. He was a cattleman doing things differently to what farmers, I guess, on the coastals were doing, and even his neighbors, because he was a man who looked at the land and observed constantly because of the extremes. He had to be ahead of the game, but then he went and did a lot of things that involved soil regeneration and the microbiome of the soil, which I find so fascinating. They say there's like in healthy soil, there's more life in like a teaspoon of healthy soil than there is on this planet, and that
Right.
blows my mind. Like I think, because then it makes you think about the microbiome in your gut, like on our bodies, in the atmosphere, in the soil. It's everywhere. It's the energy of life, pretty much.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, even just the little amount that I know from watching documentaries and reading some books and everything, it's just like, ooh, you can see how deep it goes, but how important it is for our health and the planet's health. And yeah, so he just got really deep into that and then figured out how to apply those principles in the desert,
Yeah, and I
basically.
think, like, I try and get a clear cut answer out of him sometimes. I think he doesn't want to give it all away. He can kind of let me figure some stuff
Yeah,
out. He's a really, really good
fair.
mentor. I'm very blessed to have him as someone teaching me, and his son is the operations manager here. And the skills I'm learning out here are ridiculous, and it gives me such time to actually put whatever time I'm not doing skill building or growing fruit and veg or learning about science and chemistry into my health and my body. And I get to be outside 80% of my life now. Like, like
Mm.
I'm outside constantly. Even on my days off, I'm outside. When it comes to bedtime, like, I even sometimes lay out on the hammock under the millions of stars I get, and I have
Yeah,
such a
geez, you'd
connection.
get some
Yeah.
good stargazing out there, I bet.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm in a very lucky position to be improving all these things, connecting to my soul and my soul, um,
Yeah.
and it all starts there. It's just, James, it's all connected. Like the more I go into it, it's all connected. It's just this big interconnected web, and I
Hmm.
think we all have that choice to be a part of something, like that isn't the old way anymore, But we have to be the person courageous enough to say enough's enough. And if we have to walk the first few steps alone, I'd rather walk the first few steps alone than walk really bad, painful steps the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
100%. There's that reminds me of a book actually. It's part of the Footnote program, or it's one of the required readings, I suppose, of the Footnote program. But it's called New Old Way by Frank Ferencich. I think you would love it. But he talks about how there's the old way, which is like our ancestors, sort of like deep ancestors who obviously had a very close connection with nature, or they weren't separate from nature. Like they respected it and they worked with it, and um, they had a spiritual connection with it. And then there was the new way where it's all this technology and everyone is putting cushioned shoes on and separating themselves from nature, and everything's landscaped, and everything's about money and economics rather than like spiritual connection. And so he's like, look, it's too we can't turn the omelet back into eggs. Like we're already in this new way, but we kind of need a new old way. So we need to take those elements from the old way that we can actually input into this new way, and really change the direction that humanity is heading, which is getting very deep. But we're not taking steps in the right direction, and that's I mean, a lot of people are, but as a whole, humanity is in pain, mental and physical pain, and I think in large part because of our disconnection from nature. That goes with food, it goes with sleep, it goes with our movement, it goes with our mental state. Like everything is disconnected from nature and from our own nature, and therefore we're sort of feeling the effects of that. So I mean, what an amazing thing for you to experience that, such a stark contrast from city life, and I guess experiencing the pain, or experiencing some of the pain that comes with that, both physical and mental, and then to have that major shift into sort of such deep connection with nature, with growing your own food and just being out there full time. That's really cool and really inspiring.
It is so cool, you know. And even when you just moved your hand like that, I felt like you were moving me back, and you explaining it. It was a lot of trauma, a lot of suffering, and a lot of pain. But I respect that journey, that first start to my life. I respect it so much. Because it gave me the information and knowledge I needed to continue on now. And I'm so young, you know, and I hope that I can utilize my experiences to relate to those who are going through that agony and that pain. And not to tell people, I don't want to tell people what to do. That's a waste of my time. Like I got to tell myself what to do, you know. But if people are curious and understand that we're all going through it. Like it's a shift. It's like we're all going through puberty as a conscious collective together, you know. And it's okay, and you just gotta trust the process and remember that you do have a choice in the matter. Like, you know, the Rudolf Steiner, who is the man behind Biodynamics, talks about, you know, our connection with nature is always going to be there. And I remember being up in the Paluma Ranges, up in just outside of Townsville there, and I was sitting on these massive boulders, just overlooking these trees, and just sitting with giants. And then it just occurred to me, I was just like yelling out, "You are beautiful," you know, to these trees. And then I'm like, I'm nature. I'm beautiful, you know, like we are each other. And as soon as you start respecting yourself and respecting nature, it's a mirror. It's our ultimate mirror. How you treat the earth is how you treat yourself, you know. It's, and vice versa, you know, like,
it's it's like so above, or as above so below. Like it's all the same thing. Like when you look at the waterways and the trees, then there's like, it's basically like looking at our blood, our circulatory system and our respiratory system, and the earth. Like we are just essentially like a mirror image of the earth. And then when you take into account all of the microbiome that's interwoven through everything, then it's a beautiful thing. And when you can understand it like that.
And we are the microbiome, you know. We are just that. We're just on a different scale to something else out there. We are microscopic, you know, like, and to something else, we're
even the earth itself,
you know?
is microscopic.
Exactly. We're just fractals. But the new old way, it's such an interesting thing, because I go to a Steiner study group whenever I do make it into Alice, which is rare, because even being such a small little outback city, not even a city, a town, that's even too much for me now. I love being out in nature, and I fall more in love with it every day. But maybe I'm falling more in love with myself as well, you know. So which isn't
goes
a bad
both
thing.
ways. No.
But Steiner talks about you know, how we look. If you look back on Indigenous culture around the world, they had, like you said, that connection to the land. You know, they had such a loving and caring understanding, and there wasn't really that sense of self. It was, we are one and we are whole. And then the ego and identity came in, you know, we started individualizing ourselves, which is not a bad thing, because we then were able to inspire each other and come up with new creative ways and different perceptions, and such an awesome tool to think and understand and listen to each other, bring their own kaleidoscopical view to the conversation. But I think now we're at a point where it's like, okay, we went from dependent, we've become independent, some of us, and now it's time to integrate ourselves back to each other, but while maintaining that unique self, you know. And I think that's where we're moving into now, interdependence. And it's such a beautiful word, integrating independence. And I think even COVID for me, the collaboration, the abbreviation for COVID, I had to I broke it down to make it more positive when I started my journey, but I called it collaboration of vital interdependence. So it's time for us to maintain unique selves. Don't change who you are. Be you. But welcome home, you know. Let's work together and grow together.
Yeah, and I think something you said before about the going through that I guess, intense pain in so many ways. Like, yes, that would have been very challenging, and anyone who's been through pain and suffering will attest to the fact that it is very challenging. But it is, like you said, it's a signal that something needs to change. Like the pain isn't just for you to suffer. It's for you to go, oh, what do I need to change in my life so that I don't have this pain? And it's not something that needs to be, society is all about painkillers and doing anything to just get rid of pain, but it's about tuning in and listening to it, whether it's physical or mental, and going, what is this pain telling me, and what can I do to change? And I think COVID is one of those monumental. It's such a global thing that so many people are in different kinds of pain. People are experiencing pain from, losing loved ones, and people experiencing pain from being in lockdowns and not being able to see their loved ones, and all of everything in between. And I think the division that's happening as well with the way it's been politicized is very painful. And I think because it's so global and so ubiquitous, and everyone is experiencing it to some degree, then it has to it just seems like it has to bring about some kind of major shift in the collective consciousness, I suppose, of the world.
Yeah, connecting us, I think, together, and because like breathing fresh air and drinking clean water wasn't, so we had to have
Yeah.
something else that was going to make us all go, oh wait a minute, we're all in this together, so the,
Yeah, exactly. And I think people realizing just how important community is. Like, maybe you could sort of take it for granted, just being able to go and catch up with your friends or family whenever you want to, and then something like this happens and suddenly you're not allowed to, and then you're like, oh, like, I really, that is so valuable to me to be able to see my family and my friends in person. Like, yes, Zoom is cool, and I think it's awesome that we can have a chat over Zoom, or this app, and we can see each other face to face, but it still doesn't compare to actually being in the same room. And that would be awesome sometime
yeah,
to visit you down
you're
there,
more than welcome.
or across there rather.
Yeah.
But I think it's really, it's opening a lot of people's eyes to just the extreme importance of human connection, and connection with nature as well. I think that's one of the biggest things that people have been saying is, like, I really miss going to the beach, or I miss going for hikes. In some places, like in Melbourne, the parks, like even the playgrounds and parks, are closed, and
Mm.
or at least they were for a time. And there would be a big case for saying that that's really not helping anyone's health
Mm.
to restrict their access to nature. There would be a case for that, and it's not something we necessarily have to get into, but I think a lot of people are waking up to that fact that, like, I really need nature and I really need community in my life, and it's sort of made them prioritize that a lot more when they do have the freedom to do it.
Oh, definitely. And I think we had to have this wake up call, like because people weren't
Mm,
appreciating what we do have and looking after it, and especially our health. Like mental health has been such a
yeah.
thing that's brought up in conversation now, which is amazing. But I hope that people look at like, okay, how do we progress, like and move forward, and actually get to a point where we're not sick anymore. Like, because I don't want to be sick
Mm.
anymore, and I don't want to be in pain anymore. And I've done it, I've only done a short few years of it compared to like people who do their whole lives in it. But we're at a point now where we have information at our fingertips, and I don't think it's too hard to find the truthful things out there because you can feel it. And as soon as you become clear within yourself, I personally believe that alcohol is one of the worst things for you. The fact that like pubs and everything can be open and bottle-os can be of essentials, you're not dumbing yourself down. I don't want to say that, but you're
It's
killing.
kind of numbing.
Yeah, and you shut off your receptors. Put it this way:
Mm,
if you, what does the alcohol stuff that we use all on our hands to kills 99% of germs, right? if alcohol kills 99% of germs and you drink that, what's it do to your insides, to your microbiome in your gut, which is
Mm-hmm.
and then to your receptors to life and how you feel. I'm a big anti-advocate for painkillers because I like to feel my threshold. You know, I don't want to take them and then push past that threshold when my body's telling me, "Hey, listen to me. I'm in pain. Can you do something about this?"
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah,
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting point about the thing. Like, I think the deeper point is that if you tune in to your intuition, and you really listen to the signals that your body is giving you, then that can tell you a lot about what you need to do, or it can tell you a lot about what is true or what is not. And I think truth is a truth can be subjective, obviously, but there's certain things that will really resonate with you as truth when you actually listen properly. But if you're in so much pain, that you're trying to numb it, whether that's numbing physical pain with painkillers and so on, or numbing mental pain with alcohol or other things, other vices, then you're not able to fully listen to the messages your body is giving you, and therefore you're not actually able to make the change that you need to make.
but that's because it's scary. Like, and it is
It
scary
is,
because you've
yeah.
got to face yourself and what you're doing to yourself. You know, taking accountability. I had a moment the other day. You know, I said I was on my beam and I've had such lower back pain lately, and I really have put that to do with this car injury that I had when I was younger. That was
Hmm.
fully my doing and taking that responsibility, but having to admit that to myself and apologizing to myself, it's a very confronting thing, and it can be very
Mm.
overwhelming to people because people don't know how to react or give themselves that love. And that's something that's been on such a journey with me. It's okay, well, I chose actually to put myself here, and I chose to do this to myself, and I put myself in these positions, and but if I could do 10 years of destruction, what can I do with 10 years of creation? You know, as soon
Mm.
as you make
Hmm.
that switch, it's like, it's scary, but the hard work is so scary. It's always scary, but instant gratification isn't gonna cut it anymore. It's
Yeah.
working towards
Yeah.
it, the long term stuff, laying of the concrete.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference as well between acknowledging that you were. It's like it's a difference between blaming yourself and beating yourself up and being like, "Oh, I did this to myself," like I regrets and this and that, versus like, okay, I can see how my actions have contributed to me being where I am now. I can't change those actions. I accept those, but it's now my responsibility to take control of this situation and do, or at least take control of the factors that I have control over,
Yeah.
um, so that I can be working towards something, as opposed to, I think a lot of people can get into this mindset of like, oh, like it's like kind of a victim mentality where it's like, oh, all of this stuff happened to me, and none of it's my fault and there's nothing I can do because the world is just against me, and that's a very oversimplification, but it that kind of attitude doesn't leave much room for growth. It just sort of keeps you stuck in this cycle. Whereas if you, yeah, like you said, if you can acknowledge, like, hey, I got myself here, I can also get myself out, essentially through the right practices and the right mindset. And having a bit of guidance, like, if you're feeling some back pain and you have someone like me who can go, hey, I'm getting a bit of back pain. What do you reckon I should look into? Or you have it, for anyone out there, you have a practitioner that you can trust, that you can get advice from, or you have some kind of resource that can help guide you. Then it makes that a lot easier rather than just going, oh, I know I should do something, but I've got no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that is the beauty of the internet, is you can make these connections with people anywhere in the world pretty much,
Yeah.
and find people that you do know, and or find people that you like and trust to help you out with issues. And for the most part, I mean, helping people feels really good. Like, for the most part, everyone wants to help out.
Oh, definitely.
um Yeah, yeah,
And that's the thing. Like, I think that's like, I know what my passion is. My passion is definitely in the garden. That's I think it's also like, who doesn't want to grow their own food? Like,
yeah,
I don't even care about money. Oh, I do care about money. Words are magic, spelling and all that jazz. So I do care
yeah.
about money, but it's on it's just an exchange of energy for me. But the fact that
Mhm.
I get paid to kind of grow my food that feeds me to then, like, people go on that cycle of work where they like go to their shitty job to get paid to go to their shitty house to pay for the lifestyle so they can sleep and then go back to their shitty job. And it's just like, and now I'm in a gig where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm just in a circle, but I feel like I'm spiraling up, like I'm actually
Mm,
vortexing myself
mm.
upwards because I'm growing each day with my position,
Yeah,
but also like,
yeah,
yeah, just I don't know. I think I have developed a very strong love for myself, and not the love that gave me from the gym. That is a completely different love and a very narcissistic. For me, was narcissistic. Um, just trying to look buff and fit and attractive. When really, if I just looked myself in the
yeah.
mirror and had a moment of appreciation for my soul and my journey and my characteristics and my laughter and all that jazz, I actually realized that I didn't have to get my gym membership. I could have just had some inner and deep work and movement
Mm,
with my body. Like even just doing some of these exercises on the beams, and it's so cool to appreciate. If I feel parts of my legs, especially like far out the shins, I can feel it in the shins. In when you're doing the balancing, for once you hit that minute,
yeah.
it's killer. But I feel so strong and empowered, and all I did was balance on my leg on a beam for 1 minute, and I'm like,
I
oof,
know it doesn't seem to
amazing.
make sense, does it?
It's like
Yeah,
it's why do we as people oversimplify the simple? Like, why do we are we
yeah.
addicted to the stress? Are we addicted to the chaos? I think I was once upon a time,
Mm,
but now I'm just more peaceful, I guess. A
yeah,
lot more
yeah.
love.
Well, I think a lot of people can get addicted to sort of stress cycles, and then yeah, it takes sometimes it takes a breaking point, whether that's an injury or a meltdown or
Pandemic.
something pandemic to yeah for them to go, oh, I need to get out of this cycle. But I was I mean I think uh, so I've been spending a fair bit of time, or a decent amount of time. I'd like to spend more, but out at TFC Bush One, which for anyone listening is the like the nature immersion retreat that we're building bit by bit. And I mean, I'm addicted to it out there to a degree. Like, I just love it out there. Like, I want to spend as much time out there as possible. And we've been growing a garden, and even getting out there for a weekend, which is pretty much what I can manage at the moment around the business. Um, I just feel so reset in my body and mind and soul, just from just being out in nature, disconnecting from technology for some time, and just planting. We've been planting herbs and fruit trees and potatoes and stuff like that, and we've been going for hikes and going for creek hops and so on. So I can really only imagine how it's been for you, like pretty much doing that full time. But I'm interested, like what your day looks like out there in the desert. Like, is it a pretty consistent routine, or like, paint us a picture?
It's look, I couldn't really paint the picture because it's different every day.
Okay.
I do pretty much a 5 day work week roster, with a bit of a shift in the month, but each day is different. So we've got the biodynamic garden, and by the biodynamic side, kind of just aiming for organic as possible. There's certain things we can only achieve being in the desert, and
Mm,
we're trying to, I guess the biggest focus is just soil regeneration and mucking around with
yeah.
soil regeneration, especially using alkaline water because we're on bore water out here, which is
Okay.
um, a really interesting topic as well. But I'm not. I don't think I have the knowledge there for that one. But it's an interesting. It's still something I'm learning. So my average day pretty much looks
Yeah.
like. I get up, I wake up, I do some balancing, do some yoga, but then I get out and we do a bit of watering. So we go out. We've got a lot of things happening at the moment in the garden, with like tomatoes and pumpkins and watermelons growing at the moment, which is amazing because if
Sweet.
we get the rains that are suspected over the summertime, I got about 200 to 300, give or take, watermelons over last summer, which was amazing. But because we're warmer
Right.
here, we had watermelons all the way into autumn, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was incredible stuff. And then so I spend about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours in the garden. It depends. Like at the moment, we've spent quite a lot lately in the garden because we've got a bit of a biodynamic open day happening next weekend. Oh, it's my weekend today, so it's this everyone else's weekend this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if anyone on here is actually from Alice, or come check us out. But look, we're still new and we're still developing, because then after that we've got a wilderness park. We've got about 2/3 of our place is conservation, and then we've got about 12 bush camp sites, so you can come out here and camp with us under the stars, away from light pollution and noise pollution. You have a drop hole dunny that yours truly built, dug, and created.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then a lot of bird life watching out here, but it's usually getting the campsites ready. We've also got a little convenience store, being 2 hours away from Alice and about an hour away from Papania, which is the closest shop. We've kind of got our own little place. We've got a neighbouring community in Bangara, Indigenous community, and we're in the middle of opening an art centre for them as well, because the owner, Chris, has a great connection with the community, and his goal is to inspire them to do something with themselves as well. And then so we're always, yeah, I couldn't give you an exact routine because it's like
Yeah.
whatever's
No, that's
on
all
the
right.
agenda,
Yeah.
And that's why I love it out here. It's different. Like I learned how to,
Variety.
I learned, like, some days I'm digging holes to build fences, or doing trenching for plumbing, or I'm in the garden, or I'm dragging the roads to do road maintenance, or I'm just doing a bin run, because rubbish is such an important thing, that we don't really think of, because we put it in a bin and the garbage man comes and gets it, but not out here. So we've got to do our own rubbish maintenance as well, which makes you really acknowledge the energy that it takes to go into a product, for us to consume a product, or our energy that goes into getting the product, and then the end product of getting rid of that product. This energy just never ends. It just transforms. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
I left one of the grapevine taps on yesterday, and woke up this morning to a bit of a flood in the patch, because it just happens, type of thing. And so maintaining, like making sure that those tanks have water now, and if there's a leak in the line or anything like that, you're always just your brain is never lacking in stimulation out here. That's for sure.
No, that's good. Yeah, I bet. And what happens with the garden? Like, obviously, you eat the food that comes from the garden, and what else? I guess what's like the bigger picture of what's going on there?
I think there's a couple of big pictures with what's going on. So the biggest thing is to get produce into the village, which is all of us. Obviously, we all want to be living out of there. It's, like I said, it's still establishing, and like, I've only been doing this for a year, and these guys trust me with doing it. So it's just like a big canvas / laboratory / school for me to learn, and for them to learn, and us to learn how to grow food in the desert and what we're capable of achieving. So I think the goal is to get food for us, but also food for the community, food in our little shop. But also then I think later down the track, to be able to implicate this stuff across the desert and into other communities would be ideal. Which would be amazing,
kind of like proving a model that works, and then showing people how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And soil regeneration is so interesting. But if anyone here knows on permaculture, they say for an ecosystem to be self-sustaining in any essence, takes 12 to 20 years. So you've got to commit a lot of time into it, which is nothing on the minuscule life that you can actually create.
For sure.
Yeah, so when these guys first started, the soil was virgin, red soil, red dirt, rocky country. I still dig up like big rocks in there all the time. But they couldn't even, when they were watering the areas for the trees to go in, the water wouldn't even sink. It was that compacted. Now I've got worms in there. So
Wow, really?
yeah. So it's an incredible journey what we're able to achieve. I asked Chris, what is the goal? I try to get, I need to see the target of what we're shooting at, but I think we're shooting like 5 arrows and seeing where they land. With a few targets there, like it's like a carnival festival. Yeah. But he says, wouldn't it be amazing if you were in a plane and you're going over, you see this red country, and then you look down and you just see a forest, this big green patch, and I think it's amazing. We've got 4 mango trees in there, and if anyone who's from Queensland knows how big a mango tree gets, they can get pretty big. And like I said, we had 6 mangoes when I was here last in December. I think I've got at least 60 on there this year, so it's quite a difference. I've got almond trees are flowering. I've got, citrus, mandarins, grapefruit, guavas. I just replanted and transplanted a guava sucker. We got mulberry trees. We got olive trees. We got 3 figs. Then we've got a big green manure patch. I'm growing oats, buckwheat. I've never grown any of this stuff in my life, so don't ask me any technical questions, but we're doing it, right? And I'm in there every day.
That is amazing.
And I talk with my plants and they talk back to me because I'm in there every day with them, and
yeah.
Do you know what budgerigars are, right? Budgies, the bird.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were native to Central Australia until I came to Central Australia.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't know that either until now.
They fly in swarms in like 300 to 400 birds around, and there's so many birds. So it's incredible, to be honest.
That is a pretty incredible vision. That just when you said that about a plane flying over the desert and then suddenly you see this big green forest, it's like it's pretty powerful to imagine. And I think in one sense it's like that's probably the most challenging place that you could grow food. And if someone's able to do it there, then you can pretty much grow food anywhere if you take those those same kind of principles and apply them. And I was interested to. I feel like it might be too much of a big topic, I suppose, biodynamics and permaculture.
Never.
I was interested to delve into it a little bit. But if there was a quick summary, or even I guess some resources that people should check out when it comes to those concepts.
Cool. So my description that I tell people, because it is broadness. Biodynamics for me is a way of looking at soil regeneration through an esoteric mindset. Mm-hmm. So you see, you look at increasing the microbiome through soil regeneration with certain plant matter, certain animal matter, and certain integration with the cosmic powers, I guess you could say. The biggest thing I say to people, the plants photosynthesize with the sun, and the moon helps them, has an effect with the water on the earth, So if these 2 things up there have an effect on the planet, what are the rest doing? And look, I'm no pro on this, and there's probably some science guru who'll put me down or out of shame for it, but I don't really care because I'm in the garden and I'm doing it and it's working, And this is my reality. And if it doesn't work for you, that's rad, but it's working for me. So biodynamics, bit of a soil regeneration with a bit of chemistry, alchemy, and some fun, and just like being in a kitchen but in the garden, And permaculture, I see it as permaculture design, they call it, where it's integrating how you can get, I guess, a maximum output with minimal input, but also creating a circular economy and allowing everything to be a part of the system instead of just, monocropping or doing certain things. And I think, there's some parts in biodynamics and permaculture that go against each other. So I'm kind of just coming up with my own thing as well.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
you know,
Okay.
because that's the thing. You
Yeah.
can read a book, you know, and you can study this stuff, and you can go see someone else's place and see what they're doing. But you got to be in your garden every day to figure out what it's actually doing, you know, and how to design.
Yeah.
You got to be an experimenter, like we used to be. We used to go out and experiment and investigate, and curiosity and imagination, all the things we had as children.
Trial and error.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
you've just got to go out and muck around. But you know, Bill Mollison, David Holgram, a basic permaculture introduction. I recommend people go do a permaculture design course. It's not only a course, but it's a lot of knowledge in one go. But if you like sift through that and find the basics and meet the people, that's what it's about. It's about meeting the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Rudolf Steiner. Oh, look, it's really interesting. How I learn is I just go to an area and I look up the community garden. I look up. I just talk to it about everyone. Like my massage therapist finished a massage on me, and then we went out to her garden, and now she's asking and consulting with me constantly because she sees my passion for it. You know. Just talk to everyone. Everyone's gardens.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or someone's curious.
Just get out there
and
so does. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, and if you don't know, someone's going to ask you something that's going to ignite you to go out and find the answer if you don't know, you know?
True.
And that's what I say to people, I'm always right because I admit when I'm wrong. People are going to deny that. But, you know, if you can admit that, then you're also on the way to learning so that you can be right, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something, like something you said before about with gardens, like I really like the analogy of gardening with like health. Like if you're never going to get one correct answer that suits everyone for health. Like it's going to be different depending on the person, depending on their history, depending on their
needs,
you know, their needs and their goals and so on. And so you know, like you said, it's got to be an investigative, explorative, creative approach. It's not like follow these steps and you will get a great garden. It's like, oh, let's try this. This didn't work so well. Let's try that. And listening and communicating the whole time. Like you said, you talk to your plants and they talk back. And similarly, we can sort of talk to ourselves and talk to our talk with our intuition and see what's working for us and what's not. And deep down, it can take some figuring out. But at least when it comes to health, generally deep down, you kind of know whether something's working or not. Or it's like, I guess the proof is in the pudding. Like with a garden, like you're either going to get a flourishing, beautiful plant that's, producing fruit and so on, or it's going to be struggling and the leaves are falling off. And so, you know whether or not it's going well. And likewise with your body,
you can taste
and you can taste it. Yeah. Yeah. And likewise with your body, you'll feel really good and energetic and pain-free and so on when the right things are happening, and you'll get the signals when you're not doing the right things, basically.
And it's also it's a big thing of one of the key principles in permaculture is observe and interact. It's the first principle, observe and interact, because that's one thing we don't do anymore. We don't observe. And I go to my garden every morning and I observe straight away. I first look at who's been in here because there's tracks everywhere because we don't have anything covering it, obviously. We integrate all of the wilderness into it. But also just interacting and constantly like trial and error. You're going to be a part of it. You're going to change things. You're going to try things that work and some things that don't. I think you have to be not fearful of rejection because rejection's just learning, lessons are just blessings, really. I think that's a big thing. The three principles of the three, like, I guess, values of permaculture as well is so important, and I think it's very beautiful. Is earth care is the first one, which is, I think, relates to us and ourselves, or us and nature, of caring for the land and also making sure whatever you do when you're in the garden is going to be positive for yourself and for the plant and for the land and for the birds and the bees. You know, you don't spray pesticides, you're going to kill off all the good stuff, you know, and you may get a good crop, but you may not next year, you know, and it's just having an awareness of what your actions are going to cause, you know. The second value is, and most people often change this, but it should be being care. It's not people care. A lot of people change it to people care, and I think that's a very sad way of looking at it, because then you're not integrating everything. That being care is where it should be. You've got the microbes in the soil, and the birds and everything. The birds leave me half a fig every morning. Like they'll nibble on one and they'll leave one, and I eat it. You know, I'm not fussed. I'm not aiming to sell for, I guess, mass production. I don't think we need to come away from mass production and actually grow our own food. We'll save a lot of money doing so. And but yeah, so being care, and then the last one is fair share, and that's sharing what you've got and integrating that with people. You said, like, you know, talk to someone like you if I'm having back problems. Well, I'm going to talk to you after this. But it's sharing that knowledge, you know, and that understanding, and you know, whatever you get, share that with people. Like, why do we have to hoard it all? Like, why do we need so much stuff? You know, sharing that.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's more of that abundance mindset. Like there's enough to go around, and I can share what I've learned and share what I've grown, and it always comes back to you. Like it's the sort of law of reciprocity, where you put out good stuff to the universe and to the world and to other people and other beings, and then you get that back, and it sort of never fails, really.
And that's what I was saying earlier when I said I did 10 years of destruction. I was the person creating that life. I was doing all these things. I may not have had the skill set to understand why I was doing these or how they were occurring, but as soon as I had the aha moment, it went, wait a minute, I'm digging my own hole. No one else is here digging it. It's like, where's this hole getting deeper? It's like, you know, oh wait, but I can dig myself out of there too, you know, and that's something I think I learned to do, and taking accountability for that, you know. So it's a beautiful journey. It's amazing. I love it.
Oh, I love it too. Yeah, it's it gets me more and more excited to gradually spend more time out bush and get that deeper connection, and also, I mean, something I always like to I guess emphasize is that, you know, not everyone has to go out bush and, you know, or go out to the desert and have a biodynamic farm in the desert, or, you know, it's about finding ways that you can do it in your own life, you know, even if that just means growing some herbs out on your balcony, or
community gardens. That's what
doing a community gardens, or exactly. And there's always a way.
Yeah, they usually have working bees. You know, I've a lot of people ask me, how do you do this? And I'm like, look, you don't have to run away like I did. Like I literally left everything behind. I was a very extreme case, but I guess I walked down a path to get a lot of knowledge on this journey to share and help people see it differently. And the best thing I say to people is to definitely just find a community garden. Go out to people who are also looking for fresh food and fresh produce. Usually a community garden will have a lot that you can be a part of, or have your own garden, or you can just help out, and they have fresh produce. Like fresh produce. I just love it.
Fresh produce.
What you fuel yourself with is the best way to have a conscious awakening, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's all out there. Like there definitely are people out there doing it, and if you live in a city, generally there'll be some kind of community gardens and some kind of farmers markets that you can check out. It might take a bit of extra effort and planning, but it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, you start meeting people. That's the best way. Like I've met so many different people from all walks of life just from doing this, and I have a big interest in, like, I'll go to the courses that people offer, because I think that's the best way to make a community straight away. And then what you get out of that. I'm a big person with the helping of, you know, I'm a healthy person. I can go out and work a full day's work and stuff. And I know a lot of people need a lot of help doing projects. And I've met a lot of people and just spent a couple hours at their house helping them in their garden. And we smashed 2 people, you know, more hands, less work type of thing. And I've
Yeah,
made
yeah.
friends all up the East Coast. I've made friends all down in Adelaide and South Australia that I don't even think I'll need to buy a house in those two states now, because I've just got people who have
Yeah.
welcomed me into their house because they let me muck around in their garden, you know. So, and I don't even know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about half the time, so I don't know why they trust me. But
Well, it's the thought that counts.
yeah, definitely. Oh,
And I think that's it's such a cool aspect of it as well, is that it's not just about getting the movement, and it's not just about getting the connection with nature, and it's not just about getting that community, but it's all of those and how they interact and how they support each other. I think is the really beautiful thing.
yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, I've made connections with people. Like, I went down to SA recently to visit the people I've made connections with upon doing my biodynamics course, and was sitting at one of the ladies her property overlooking her vineyard, and was sitting there with like a couple of different ladies, and then like the youngest bloke that we made friends with there was 20-year-old, environmental science student whose passion is amazing. And the younger generation are really like, coming up in this, and the older generation, I can see them having the shift in mindset, going, actually, I want to leave a legacy of good behind. And the
Mm,
young are pushing
mm,
for it. And when you make those relationships connected, it's amazing. And that brings it back to like Indigenous culture. We had elders, we had people who passed on the knowledge and passed on
for
the wisdom
sure.
because they've walked the walk. Like, I don't want to walk the hard
Yeah,
things if someone else has already done it. Like, I'm walking down these roads and there's
for
footprints
sure.
everywhere, you know. I'm like, oh, they're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
not in there's shoe footprints though. That's the problem. I'm doing it barefoot.
Yeah, so in some ways we gotta walk a new path. But you're right. There's so much that we can learn from people who've blazed the trails behind us, and so much knowledge and wisdom there, that if you're willing to listen and soak it up, then you can really accelerate your journey, which is really awesome.
Definitely share the knowledge. Like, I think no one's really right or
Yeah,
wrong. It's storytelling. It's sharing whatever you think and taking whatever you need out of it. You don't need to take it all, or be all right or be all wrong or whatever it is. It's just
yeah,
open
and
perspective on it.
and exactly, and that's pretty much exactly what we've done here.
Yeah.
It's been the perfect way to hear more about your story and the lessons that you've learned, and I've taken a lot from it, and I'm sure a lot of people listening will take at least something from it. And I mean, I feel like we could talk for hours. We will have to wrap it up, but I'm very much looking forward to getting out to Mount Zeil and checking out the garden, and by that time I'm sure it'll be pumping even more, and maybe we can do a follow-up episode as well.
Oh, definitely. That'd be amazing. And look, like I said to you when we first spoke, there's a big health community out in Alice Springs that I want to be at one of your seminars. So
Yeah.
you got to come out, even if I'm the only person.
Yeah.
But we'll
I reckon
definitely.
I reckon we can make it
Yeah,
happen.
I think
Yeah.
we will definitely. And look, I'm a big advocate for bare feet and just healing. Just I'm a big advocate for people to start loving themselves the way I love myself and I love the land. It's an amazing
Yeah.
feeling. Why would you not want to feel like this? So,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
thank you so much for this chat and my new beamer. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. And I guess if people are keen to follow more about with what you're doing and everything, like I know you've got an Instagram, which is at Bare Soul Wanderers.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, Bare
yeah,
Soul
yeah.
Wanderers. That's right. And is there a website for the? There is a website for
Yeah, so
Mount
it's
Zeil
just
Wilderness Park. Hey.
Mount Zeil Wilderness Park. It's Zeil. And yeah, we've got bush camping pretty much out here. So if you are making your round trip around Australia, make sure you go through the middle because you get to see things that most people don't get to see, and it's very beautiful,
Yeah,
full of
yeah.
biodiversity, and you get to see budgies in swarms, not in cages in someone's house. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
pretty
I'm
cool.
I'm pretty keen to see those as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll put all of that in the show notes as well, so that people can just click on and they can see it all. Your Instagram and the website. And yeah, thanks again for coming on. It's been really good, and I'm definitely looking forward to a round 2 when we can make it out to out there.
And I look forward to coming to check
out
out
to somewhere.
what you're doing. Yeah, out of somewhere.
Yeah.
It is somewhere. Yeah. Oh, honestly, James, I look forward to seeing the sparkle in your eye like it does for me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Misty. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next week.